All right, let's get into one thought every game. Eagles, Dolphins, and Week 13. NFL Insider KC Joyner is back, and we got to look at this week's matchup between Philly and Miami and all the Week 13 action here on the Sports Bash. Happy Thanksgiving, Casey. Welcome back. How are you, pal?
Hey, great. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys, too.
Well, we got Eagles-Dolphins, and I know a couple of weeks ago when this season was going, you were advocating the league step in and do something about the Dolphins. You've since kind of changed and said, look, no, they are playing hard. They have changed, but this team still has major deficiency here. So let's start with that. Where are the biggest issues on this Dolphins team?
Everywhere. I mean, I don't mean to be that off-putting about it, but I grade the players. I grade defensive players red, yellow, green, and I grade rush defense, and I grade all the cornerbacks. I've got the fantasy starts at service, and I look at all the players. So left cornerback, right cornerback, nickel, strong safety, free safety. They grade all the players. All of the Dolphins players in the secondary are green rated. Their rush defense is green rated. Their pass blocking is terrible. They've got the most sacks in the league. Their run blocking is bad. They've got one good receiver pretty much, and that's about it. I mean, as hard as they're playing and as competitive as they're keeping games because they've got good coaching, I mean, they're just maybe the most talentless team in the league. They've got probably the least talent of any team in the NFL.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Philadelphia entered the year with the receivers in line they had last week, people might say this team is talent-deprived. But if they're going to get healthy. It looks like they're going to get Brooks back and Johnson back and Alshon back and Aguilar. But if they played with the deck they had last week, would that team offensively be good enough to score points against Miami?
I always look at, when I'm looking at green-rated players, my contention for them is that if they would take a green-rated player, will take a red-rated player, who's a guy who shouldn't be starting, and make them play at a yellow-rated level. And they'll take a yellow-rated player and make them play at a green-rated level. And they'll take a green-rated player and make them play at a blue-rated level. So, I mean, the idea is that you're playing that caliber defense, they're going to move them up. I think the Eagles' offense last week was a red-rated offense, which is bad. Again, from an offensive perspective, that's always a bad thing. So I think when you've got a red-rated offense facing a green-rated defense, usually they're going to play at a yellow-rated level, which means you can score 20 points. And now if they got all these players back, I think that's going to raise their levels up even higher. I think they could play at a green-rated level this week.
Casey, obviously the Dolphins, Sal Powell was on with us earlier, and he brought up that Ryan Fitzpatrick was the quarterback for Tampa that really ripped the Eagles last year. Is Fitzpatrick doing enough to scare the Eagles' defense?
Hey, go take chances. That's the thing. Remember, the Eagles, they screw up in coverage. They do it. I mean, they've got more talent now, but we saw on the flea flicker last week they screw up in coverage. By the way, the reason that they threw the flea flicker last week, the reason Seattle did that is because they saw that Bradham was fighting really hard on the play action fake, and they knew he wasn't going to get back into coverage. Looking at the tape, that's what I'm thinking happened on that play. So they knew we can get people out of position. The Dolphins can do the same thing and get people out of position. If they get people out of position and they're throwing vertical, which Fitzpatrick will do, there are some secondary issues that the Eagles can have if they're trying to be over-aggressive. So no matter that they're facing a talentless offense, they still need to play in position, because if they don't, Fitzpatrick will at least test them and see if he can beat them deep.
Obviously, Wentz has had some issues, but in this particular game, is this the kind of game against this particular team that he can get himself and right the ship?
I think he can. Remember, last week he threw a ton of passes to tight ends. They threw 22 passes to tight ends, completed 19 of them, but it's only like 6.5 yards per attempt, which is not a great number, but still, you can live with that if you're completing that percentage of your passes. I think they need to build that kind of a game plan for him. I'd like to see them go vertical, because last week the Dolphins put both their starting safeties on IR, and they were missing a starting cornerback who actually was a backup cornerback at the beginning of the year, so they're down to fifth and sixth stringers. So you're going to be able to take vertical shots, but if I'm Philadelphia, I want to build his confidence, and I want to give him a game plan that says, not only can you complete 19 to 22 tight ends, I want you to be able to complete that kind of percentage to everybody. So I'm trying to build a high percentage passing game for him to get his confidence back and to get the whole offense's confidence back.
All right. I mean, a lot of times we like, hey, is this spot here? Are they there? I mean, realistically, do you see a spot where Miami could give Philadelphia problems, or is this a mismatch?
Miami could. Bill Parcells used to say that if you have a situation where your team had less talent than the other team. What you wanted to do is turn the game into a shootout because, as we talked over the years, shootouts are 50-50 propositions. Ryan Fitzpatrick is the kind of quarterback who will get into a shootout contest if you give him the opportunity. So if I'm Miami, I want to make sure, or if I'm Philadelphia, I want to make sure I'm really getting after these guys quickly. I'm trying to get out to a lead. I'm trying to put them into a situation where they're from behind quickly. Because if they think it could turn into a shootout contest, those contests tend to just grow on their own, and then it could become that sort of situation. So if I'm Philadelphia, I want to be aggressive, put these guys away, make Fitzpatrick make a mistake, and get ahead of them. Because Miami does play hard, and they're not just going to quit on you like they would have in Week 1.
All right, let's get you'll break down the game. Tell us who you like after we look at Week 13. One thought on each game. Here we go as the Thanksgiving matchups start tomorrow. Chicago plays Detroit. Chicago had a win last week against the Giants. Detroit at home. Not a great matchup here, and a lot of people want Detroit off this game. But how do you see this one going?
I'm a former Michigander, born and raised in Michigan, so I'd still like to see Detroit keep the game just from a tradition perspective. I may change my mind, though, if Jeff Driscoll doesn't play tomorrow and they've got a third-string quarterback and are getting beat at 25-0 or something. So I think Detroit's going to lose this contest, and it's going to be – I think Matt Patricia might be the beginning of the end for him.
All right, Buffalo, Dallas. A lot of people in Philly will be watching this one. Dallas has not beat a team with a winning record, but I don't know that a lot of people buy into Buffalo. So can Buffalo go on the road and help out the Eagles?
It's going to be tough because it's on the road, and we haven't seen this team face a tough team on the road, Buffalo, and be able. But remember, defense travels, so does a strong running game, and they've got Trey White, who can also shut down Amari Cooper the way that Stephon Gilmore did last week. So I think Buffalo is actually going to answer the bell, and they're going to pass this test and beat Dallas, and I bet they may beat by a touchdown.
Wow, all right. So Casey likes Buffalo to not only win, he likes them to beat Dallas handily. How about New Orleans, Atlanta? Atlanta went down there and won the game in New Orleans. Now they get the game at home. The problem was Atlanta last week lost the game at home. They were starting to play good. Can we buy into them sweeping the Saints?
Bill Walsh used to say that he could get his team emotionally fired up for a contest 3, 4, maybe 5 times a year, depending on the length of the season. But he really couldn't do more than that. And what you had to do otherwise was play at a particular level. Atlanta had a 2-game stretch there where you could see them playing fired up, and I think they ran out of gas last week. And you're coming off a game where you ran out of gas, and now you've got a short week contest going, and you're facing New Orleans. I know it's at home for them, but still, it's a short week contest facing an extremely talented Saints team. I think the norm comes back to play here, and I think that New Orleans win this by at least 10 points.
Okay, that's our Thanksgiving schedule. We have all 3 games on 97.3 ESPN. Let's go to the Sunday slate. The Jets have won 3 in a row. The Bengals haven't won at all. Does that trend continue? 4 in a row for the Jets? Really, Casey?
It's 4 in a row for the Jets. I'm absolutely picking that. Mind you, Gase, when he was with Miami, he had that talentless team playing well above its talent level. He did a fantastic job coaching that. Doesn't get any credit for it because they were just so bad talent-wise. He's getting the Jets start to play to their talent level. And Darnold, people are starting to see why he was such a highly touted prospect in college. So I think they're going to blow Cincinnati out.
AFC South, these games always seem to matter. They always seem to be late in the season. Tennessee, Indianapolis. Indy seems to lose bad games. Tennessee goes on the road. They win. They lose at home. But Tannehill has really changed some things from there. I like the Titans all of a sudden. How do you like them against Indianapolis, though?
Couldn't agree more on Tannehill. He's able to get more out of that passing game than what Mariota was getting, plus they've got the dominant ground game, too. And Indianapolis, it looks like Brissett is banged up. It looks like he's just – I think that he's just taken a lot of hits this season, and I think it's catching up to him. Plus, they're missing Mack. I mean, they're just starting to become an injured team, but also with Hilton being banged up, too. You add those injuries together, and I'll take Tennessee.
All right, next up we got Green Bay at the Giants. You know, the Giants obviously a mess. Green Bay, they can't afford, though, to lose a bad game like this on the road. They're still playing for the division. Somebody won the Flyers-Coyotes tickets. I heard that. But Green Bay at New York here, they can't slip up in this game, can they?
I don't think they can. If Barkley was at full strength, and it's obvious he's not, but if he was the Barkley of last year, I'd say, yeah, the Giants have a real good chance of pulling off the upset because Green Bay has a terrible run defense. But with him being at, 75, 80%, with him being at that caliber, I think that takes the kind of upset capability for the Giants out of the equation. I think Green Bay won that one.
All right, next up for Week 13 action, Cleveland-Pittsburgh. Big one. We saw the fight, but really the fight is that Cleveland's still involved here. They could win a bunch of games here. That AFC second wildcard team might be 8-8, 9-7. So can Cleveland go to Pittsburgh and sweep the series?
It's going to be tough because Pittsburgh's now got Duck in there, and they've got they benched Rudolph. And Rudolph was playing badly enough to get benched, and that was even before all the fight and all that. I think they would have trended in that direction anyway. But the thing about Cleveland is, I think this is what's going to happen. Is Cleveland's going to look at last week, see how well they did, and think, great, everything's turned around. Our passing game is great. Forgetting you were playing an injury-decimated secondary. You were playing fifth and sixth string guys. They're going to be overconfident. They're going to go into Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's going to set things back to normal. So I got the Steelers winning that one.
All right, next up. Sorry, Casey. We got this place is packed right now, standing around me, and there's noise everywhere. Washington, Carolina. Carolina, we thought they were leaking oil. They played well on the road last week. They come home, and Washington actually won, though. But Carolina, I guess they're mathematically still hanging around that wild card.
Washington is, I think that their quarterback situation, I think Haskins, for him to be taking selfies at the end of the game instead of going up for the kneel down, it just shows that he's a rookie and he's got a lot of growing up to do. But when Carolina, their rush defense is so terrible that I think Washington could pull off the upset if they leaned heavily on Geis and Peterson. I think there's a chance to do that. But Carolina's got CMC. When you've got that kind of a player who can make that kind of an impact against a terrible Washington run defense, I'll take the Panthers at home.
Tampa Bay, Jacksonville. This is in your neck of the woods out there in western Florida. Tampa, you never know what Tampa team's going to show up. But Jacksonville, it sounds like, and you would probably have a better beat on this than us, sounds like they're ready to move back to Minshew, the fans anyway.
Yeah, when you've got Tom Coughlin having doing a video talking about where they are as a team and all that, trying to reassure the fan base, it tells you how bad things are for that club. They had one good season a couple years ago, and people thinking they were a great team, and they're not. They've got big problems, and Minshew gave them a certain energy that you're just not getting out of Foles. And Tampa, if nothing else, Tampa knows what they are. We're going to go vertical, we're going to be a big play team, and we're going to get in a kind of a shootout. And I think they'll turn that game into a shootout. And Jacksonville won't be able to keep up with Foles, so I'll take Tampa.
San Francisco, Baltimore, maybe the game of the week here. Baltimore, San Francisco, both trying to prove that they're maybe the best team in the league. So can San Francisco travel across the country and beat Baltimore? Or is Baltimore too much on a roll right now?
If it was in San Francisco, I'd be picking the 49ers because I think that they're a team that can catch up with Baltimore. Last year, Baltimore was having great success late in the year. They go in, they face the Chargers, and the Chargers use that big nickel defense and find a way to slow down the offense. I think the 49ers are going to find a way to slow down the Baltimore offense. I don't think that with Lamar Jackson and with the way they're playing as well as they are, I think the Baltimore is still going to be a great team. But, by the way, having lost their center to injury, I think that's going to be a bigger problem than people think because I think that they were probably doing play calls through their center, and that's going to change things for them. And I think San Francisco will slow it down, but being in Baltimore, I got to pick the Ravens.
Good call. That center is a good point by you, Casey. L.A. going to Arizona. It feels like these two teams are going in opposite directions. Rams down, Arizona up. But Rams are favored on the road here. But I'm intrigued by how this one finishes up.
I am too, and Goff is – hey, you pay him a $134 million contract. I know most of that's going to be, a good portion of that's going to be just paper money. It's not going to be actual money gets paid to him. It's still $134 million after we all had questions about him in the Super Bowl and after that Chicago game last year. Hey, he's just not the same quarterback. Teams have figured out how to slow these guys down. They're kind of banged up on the offensive line. Gurley's banged up. I'm looking at all that and I'm going, I'm probably going to pick the Rams to win, but I think it's a 50-50 proposition. I won't be surprised at all if Arizona wins that contest.
Yeah, L.A., Denver, this is another one where it's like two teams kind of blah right now. Denver's got offensive problems. L.A. just kind of can't get out of their own way. But Denver at home is a tough place to play.
It is a tough place to play. And mind you, Denver is playing better, but you heard the reports that the players in the team are kind of given, not obviously give up on the coach, but they have a lot of question marks. Things aren't going well there. And Brandon Allen is just, hey, the guy's trying hard, but it's just you see that level of play last week, and it's just you can't win NFL games with that level of quarterback play, and they just don't have another option. So as bad as their quarterback is, I just can't see them winning that contest.
Next up, you got Oakland, Kansas City. This one's for first place in the West. Kansas City, I think people are kind of down on them right now, but they're kind of hanging in the weeds there. Oakland crossed the country last week and got lambasted by the Jets.
They did, and that's the concern, is that the Jets, as good as their offense is, I mean, you go and now you got to go face Kansas City at Kansas City, and Kansas City has an offense that's every bit as good, if not better. I'm looking at it going, Oakland. I mean, I was buying. I was on the Oakland bandwagon, buying that they were nearly a top 10 team, and now I'm not so much. Having said that, they do have the capacity to turn it into a shootout contest, but Oakland just doesn't have enough players to win a shootout contest. So I'll take Kansas City.
Good Sunday nighter, Patriots, Houston. Houston typically always not only loses in this spot, but doesn't look good. I feel like this one might be the year that they finally turn that around, because they're not as good as they've typically been in terms of record. But this New England team, it feels like they don't feel like a 15-1 team. So this feels like a New England loss.
I agree with you that it does feel like if they're 15-1, they're 15-1 with some big flaws. Having said that, O'Brien coached for Belichick, and it just seems that when they played that Belichick learned a lot about O'Brien and how to figure out an O'Brien offense, and O'Brien didn't learn a lot about the flip side. He didn't learn about how to handle a Belichick defense and things. So I'm looking at it going, I just think that they're going to have the kind of game plan that they've got such an edge on defense. And I know that you've got Fuller and you've got Hopkins, but if you don't make mistakes against Fuller and Hopkins, you can keep them somewhat in check. And I like the discipline of New England, and I'll take them in that contest.
All right, and then, of course, Casey will be back on Monday to recap all of these games and then give us some insight on Minnesota and Seattle. But before we roll, Philadelphia, Miami, is this a tough win for Philadelphia? Is it a big-time upset by Miami, or is this a blowout win for Philadelphia?
A lot of teams go to South Florida and they forget they're there to play a football game. They get caught in the South Florida fun, and especially this time of year in the cold and all that. And so this could be a game where Philadelphia Tomlins, as I call it, where you play down to the competition level. Having said that, the level of talent difference between these teams is so great, especially Philadelphia getting some of their players back. I just can't see it's a 1 in 10 chance Miami wins this. I'll take Philadelphia pretty handily, probably at least by 10 points.
All right, KC Joyner back on Monday, and, of course, like all guests appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Casey, happy Thanksgiving, and, of course, appreciate your time as always, pal.
Same to you, man. Appreciate it.